Welcome to this great side event on youth with disabilities, meaningful participation in society. My name is Güler Koka. I'm the IDA Youth Focal Point. I will be the moderator today together with the great Gagan Chabra from the Atlas Alliance, and I'll just now give him the floor for a bit of presentation. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. My name is Gagan Chabra, and it's my honor and privilege to moderate this incredibly important side event alongside Güler Koka from IDA. I am representing the Atlas Alliance, which was one of the co-hosts for the Global Disability Youth Summit. And just a brief visual description of myself. I am wearing a black buttoned-up shirt, a black jacket. I have long, dark curly hair, and a white banner behind me with the Atlas Alliance logo. And the reason why I gave that description is because I am blind. I'm 35 years old. And now I would like to hand over to Amba to give some input with regards to the housekeeping and the logistics for the event. I'm looking forward to an engaging, exciting, and enlightening event with all of you. Amba, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Amba Salelkar, and I work at the International Disability Alliance. Welcome to the 15th Conference of State Parties side event on strengthening youth with disabilities, meaningful participation in society. This event is co-hosted by the International Disability Alliance, the African Disability Forum, and Atlas Alliance through Youth Mental Health Norway. I am now going to briefly explain some of the features of today's webinar. This webinar is being recorded. There is international sign interpretation, language interpretation in English, French, and Spanish, as well as real-time captioning in English. A CC button on your screen will enable the captions. If you need captions in a different window, the link is in the chat box. Kindly take a few seconds to enable the language of your choice in the language options, again, at the bottom of your screen. There will be an icon which looks like a globe. There will be an option to mute original audio. Please do not select this option. If you do, you might miss some parts of the audio. So let's take 10 seconds so you can select the language of your choice in the language options. If you have questions for panelists, kindly use the Q&A option or leave your question in the chat box. Our team is monitoring both, and we will try to respond to questions in the course of the event where possible. We hope to have time for questions where participants may be invited to ask questions. Please note, we cannot put the camera on for participants due to the limitations of the platform. If time is an issue, priority will be given to live answering questions that are relevant to the discussions which have been presented. If you have any accessibility issues, please send a private message to the host account or email webinars@ida-secretariat.org, and our team will try and resolve that to the best of their ability. We request all speakers to kindly keep to times and to ensure that you speak slowly enough for the interpreters and captioners to follow. We would like to thank all of the logistics and communication teams for their hard work and consideration in enabling the participation of all of us here today. Thank you. Back to moderators.
Thank you so much, Amba, and all the colleagues for your incredible support for organizing this great event. We want to do everything that we can for each one of you to have a great session together with us today. So today's session is going to be 1 hour and 15 minutes to talk about the inclusion and meaningful inclusion of youth with disabilities in the society. We'll start with an opening part with a few words from the co-host of this incredible event. And then we'll have two panels. The first one will be on sharing examples and good practices on youth with disabilities inclusion by youth themselves on different topics that are important for all the youth in context. And the second panel will be dedicated to share the call for action that was adopted in the occasion of the last and only Youth Global Disability Summit that you may remember. So we'll start now with the introduction part, and we hope that each one of you will have a great session with us. So the first speaker that will intervene today is Marit Sohim. She has worked in the development and humanitarian sectors since 1997, and she is now the new executive director of the Atlas Alliance since last April, so very recent. Before joining the Atlas Alliance, she was the director of the International Department of Caritas Norway, where she worked before as the head of emergencies. Prior to that, she has also spent 7 years as head of programs for the Forum for Women and Development. And before that, she worked for 1.5 years in Colombia as program director for the Norwegian Refugee Council. So it will be a recorded video that was recorded specifically for this event, and now we can watch and listen to the video.
It's a pleasure to welcome you to this side event hosted by the Global Disability Alliance, the Atlas Alliance, and Youth Mental Health Norway. The 14th of February 2022 was a historic day. On this day, the world's first Global Disability Youth Summit was held by and with youth from all over the world. Prior to GDS Youth, more than 1,000 youth with disabilities in the development of the Youth Charter, the youth's own call for action titled Youth with Disabilities, from holding rights to exercising them. The goal of today's event is to raise awareness about the call for action and to kickstart the process of its wider adoption. We want actors in the fields of human rights, development, and humanitarian action worldwide to sign and to implement the call for action by 2030. There are an estimated 180 to 220 million youth with disabilities worldwide, with over 80% of them living in developing countries. We know that youth with disabilities do not have the same opportunities as non-disabled youth within the arenas of education, employment, and participation in political and public life, to name a few. This is particularly the case in developing countries. The call for action contains 16 action points derived from the topics that the youth themselves have identified to be particularly important, such as access to employment, a human rights-based approach to youth with disabilities, inclusive education, political participation, climate change, new technologies, humanitarian action, and access to inclusive healthcare, among others. Youth with disabilities face attitudinal, environmental, and institutional, as well as legal barriers to full participation in society and fulfillment of their human rights. These barriers need to be recognized and addressed. Youth with disabilities will not accept being seen as passive recipients of charity. They demand equality and to be recognized as active subjects of human rights. The Global Disability Youth Summit and the call for action was an important step towards shifting attitudes to youth with disabilities and recognizing them as agents of change in the implementation of the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Sustainable Development Goals. The next step is to secure the wider adoption of the Youth Charter, and I call upon all of you, stakeholders in the fields of human rights, development, and humanitarian action, to sign the youth's own call for action. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Marit, for being with us with this great video recalling us the importance of building on the first ever Youth Global Disability Summit. So it seems I'm having some problems with my video. So if that's the case, I would let maybe the logistical team to turn on the video if it's not correct just now. So meanwhile, I will go to the next speaker, which is, so the next speaker is speaking on behalf of the African Disability Forum. As you may know, the International Disability Alliance is a membership-based organization, and one of our important member is the African Disability Forum, ADF. And so now it's now the time to give the floor to the second speaker, Fire with C. I am speaking on behalf of the African Disability Forum. Faya is an intersectional disability advocate. She's actually a self-advocate from Ethiopia. She has extensive experience on disability inclusion and also gender mainstreaming, both at national and international level, including at the UN system. She is currently the project officer at ADF, where she leads and provides technical support for ADF's initiatives on gender, youth, and inclusion, including the young African women with disabilities on leadership programs. Before joining ADF, Fayahi worked at the headquarters of the ILO, International Labour Organization in Geneva, as a junior gender equality officer and junior technical officer on disability and inclusion. She has working experiences in Ethiopia, Ghana, the US, and in Switzerland as well. She had her master's in disability studies at Syracuse University, where she got a scholarship award from the Open Society Forum. Thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Guler, for your great introduction. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, depending where you are. My name is Frey from African Disabilities Forum. Just to describe myself, I am a Black woman. I'm wearing gold headshape now. I'm wearing red, black, and white striped shirt. I have ADF's logo as a virtual background. I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of the African Disability Forum and the International Disability Alliance for joining us today. It is evident that youth with disabilities do not enjoy their rights like their peer youth without disabilities, such as their right to access to employment, education, health, as well as cultural, sports, and recreational facilities. This denial of enjoyment of their rights have even been at a greater risk during and post-COVID-19 pandemic. The inclusion of youth with disabilities is key not only for the benefit of youth with disabilities, but also for the whole society, because it would be unrealistic to imagine the achievement of the SDGs without the full and meaningful participation of youth with disabilities with all their intersectional identities. They have the right to enjoy as well as the responsibility and the potential to contribute to the achievement of the SDGs. The inclusion of youth with disabilities has been one of the priorities of the African Disability Forum and the International Disability Alliance. IDA's incredible work on the Global Disability Youth Summit, as well as the development of Youth Charter, are among the efforts made to ensure the inclusion of youth with disabilities. And last week, the African Disability Forum launched a pilot program called the Young African Women with Disabilities Leadership Program. This program, which is being piloted with the aim to increase and improve the meaningful representation of youth, African youth with disabilities in leadership and decision making. These efforts will continue to happen. However, the efforts could not be strengthened without strong collaboration with like-minded stakeholders, as well as youth with disabilities themselves. I thank you all for taking the time to join us today on this very important event. And I would like to leave the floor to the panelists for you to enjoy the wonderful conversation. Thank you. Over to you, Guler.
Thank you so much, Fia, for being with us today on behalf of the African Disability Forum and already for stepping forward in sharing a few good practices with us on the inclusion of youth with disabilities. Now it is time to hear a bit from the Norwegian Minister of Culture and Equality. She couldn't be with us in person today, but she really wanted to be with us still and shared with us a video that we will watch now. So I will now give the floor to Minister Stuan.
Youth with disabilities have the same rights as other youth and deserve the same opportunities. Persons with disabilities exist in all groups of society, and youth with disabilities are no less diverse. Youth with disabilities is often forgotten. For instance, the focus is more often on children with disabilities or persons with disabilities, but not specifically on youth with disabilities. The Global Disability Summit Youth 2022, which attracts more than 3,000 persons, was a great milestone for the youth-led disability rights movement. Youth with disabilities are not only the future, but also the present of every society. For a sustainable society, we need the engagement of youth with disabilities and their representative organizations. Keep up the good work, and we will do our part to open up more doors and provide more opportunities for youth with disabilities in Norway, and hopefully set an example for other countries.
Thank you so much, Minister. And as you say, we'll keep up the good work and give the floor to our fourth and last speaker of this opening part. So it is now the time to give the floor to another important actor of the Youth Global Disability Summit that was held in February. We'll now give the floor to Aida Tesfaye. She's the Assistant General Secretary for Youth Mental Health Norway. She is a social anthropologist based in Oslo, and she works with and for young people with disabilities and people in general, such as in inclusion, working life, use of participation, and better health services for young people. So now, Aida, you have the floor.
Thank you. My name is Aida Tesfaye, and I'm the Deputy Secretary General of Youth Mental Health Norway. First of all, thank you so much for taking part in this event. And I already told you my name is Aida, so you can imagine all the misunderstandings in the office. Brief description of myself. I have black hair, wearing a blue dress and black glasses. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this side event that we are co-hosting together with the International Disability Alliance and the Atlas Alliance. This event will build on the Youth GDS and call for action and emphasize the importance of the effective and meaningful participation of youth with disabilities in society. The GDS Youth was crucial due to the momentum that the disability rights movement is gaining globally. We really want to keep those discussions and this cooperation going. The call for action reaffirms young people's place at the heart of policy, making sure their voices are heard on important issues that affect us. It reflects the power youth holds and the importance of empowerment. At the core of youth empowerment is the belief that young people are capable of incredible things. As we have seen with the call for action, when young people have exposure to inspiring ideas and opportunities and the tools to build their confidence, they can take on anything and everything. We support the efforts of youth with disabilities who have brought together our creativity, dynamism, versatility, and resilience to shape their priorities in a call to action. Issues and challenges affect youth with disabilities just as it affects other young people, but in a far more complex way, such as access to education, employment, healthcare, and social services. Attitudes and discrimination linked to disability make it much more difficult for us to go to school, find work, or participate in local activities. In many societies, both rural and urban, the environment is immensely challenging, with physical and communicative barriers that make it harder for us to participate in social life or society in general. We affirm our commitment to ensure the participation of youth with disabilities at the global, regional, and national levels, and will continue to support and uplift youth in their efforts. We recognize that youth with disabilities and their representative organization bring essential insights from the local to the global level and across multiple areas and languages, and can play a prominent role in the disability rights arena and the larger youth movement. We will continue to empower the next generation of leaders because we find it vital to be successful to a successful disability rights movement. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ida, for your great works. I'll now hand over to Gagan, who will tell us more about this call for action, and we'll also hear some more concrete examples about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Guler, and much gratitude to Marit and the representatives from ADF, African Disability Forum, Minister Anette from Norway, and Ida from Youth Mental Health for the previous session. As you all might have heard, we have often heard this phrase, call for action, from holding rights to exercising them. So you might be wondering, what is Youth Charter? What is call for action? And from now onwards to the end, perhaps you will get much more deeper insights with regards to this particular theme, Youth Charter. So right now, this particular round, which we will have of panel discussion, you will hear from excellent youth speakers coming from Dominican Republic, Kenya, Lebanon, India, and South Sudan. And they're quite diverse with their experiences. And they will be talking about important themes. And as I mentioned about the Youth Charter a few moments ago, that Youth Charter culminated and came into existence because of the survey which was done. You'll hear more about that survey and how it was multilingual, and 1,000 participants responded from across the globe. And it covered themes, 16 themes, which are very, very crucial, starting from employment access to themes linked to assistive technologies, to theme linked to inclusive education, creating awareness, combating discrimination, and meaningful and engaging participation, both within the UN system and the society in general. So without any further ado, I would like to invite our first speaker. So her name is Eileen Fidel. We'll take a trip down to the beautiful Caribbean with her, a digital trip, a virtual trip. Eileen has previously, she's a youth activist. She's 26 years old. She's going to speak in Spanish. So for all the individuals who want to listen to the English language, please click on that English language link. And Eileen has previously moderated panel discussions for the Global Disability Youth Summit. And she has also participated in different panel discussions linked to themes of human rights, gender rights, sexual and reproductive health rights. So Eileen, off to you in Dominican Republic. The floor is yours.
Tiene la palabra. Sorry, Gagan, this is Rosario. Eileen is having some problems with no connectivity, but finding the button for the language. That's why she will be speaking in Spanish, but she doesn't understand the whole session. That's why after that, I think she will leave because she's not able to find the button to select the Spanish language. But I want to know, I'm going to speak in Spanish in order to let Eileen know that she needs to participate now. I hope she is now in the meeting. Ok, Eileen, estás aquí en la reunión para que te corresponde participar ahora, Eileen.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the delay. I'm talking from Dominican Republic, and we are more than 1 million people with disabilities. And when we talk from the Ministry of Development, this is the number that we have in mind. In this sense, I would like to talk from the experience of all the people that participate. And this portion of our population of Dominican Republic show that the workers with disabilities have to have an access and conditions to be able to work in the same way and to have the reasonable conditions, and also to have the access to health, public or private, and to be able to be employed. 5% of people have the access to health, both public or private. And we would like to change that number and to improve it. We would like to be employed in a dignified and just way. And we would like to have security of health, of life, as all people with disabilities. We would like to develop our abilities, and we would like to have the guarantee that we're going to have work as all people with disabilities. And that's why we thank very much to everyone from Latin America and Caribbean and the world that help us and that help us with the accessibility that we would like to get and that we have. And that to all the people that fight for all people with disabilities and for their rights. I would also like to thank to NGOs and different programs that help people with disabilities and that fight for their rights. I would also like to thank the Colombian programs that help people with disabilities develop technical skills. This program, this Colombian program, is entering Mexico now, and that is the initiative from the Work Council from Mexico. And in that way, we're improving the conditions of people with disabilities in the work area. If we talk about the Dominican Republic, we would like to be able to give the access to people with disabilities to be able to enter the work market with different profiles. Not just the work market, but also the university programs that are going to be open to people with disabilities. So we could live and we could develop our skills and our profiles. First thing is that we need to improve the employment process, and that we have a market, an employment market, where we could actually subscribe, and from where we could be called for different jobs, and where we could be notified about the employment opportunities that exist and that actually are coordinated with the profile we are offering. We have to keep fighting, but thanks to that fight from our friends who didn't give up, we're actually getting to the real inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eileen, for that powerful message about the fight and not to give up with regards to the employment. Eileen is referring to action point number 1 of the Youth Charter, and she is hitting the nail on the head when it comes to employment inclusion, labor market inclusion, livelihood opportunities for youth with disabilities, because having a job, having employment is not only important from a financial standpoint, but it's very crucial from a socio-cultural standpoint as well. So thank you, Eileen, for making that point. Now we will take a virtual tour to the beautiful country of Kenya, across the globe, and we will listen to a youth activist, Ruben Mtiana. Ruben is an indigenous young activist with albinism. He is an executive director in an organization called as NORAC, Albinism Association, and has worked on the themes linked to combating discrimination, stopping female genital mutilation, and issues linked to even employment. So Ruben, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. My name is Ruben Mbateng. I'm from Kenya and also an indigenous community, and I'm also from, I'm a member of African Youth Caucus. Today, I'm going to talk about the increased decent work and easing employment opportunity. These are important since it addresses increased decent work and also employment opportunity. I'm going to first talk about the increased work. The increased decent work. Point number 1 is a working environment and understanding the need of indigenous youth with disability in terms of conducive, workable space and friendly environment. Accessibility to work stations like transportations, mode of transport should be conducive and affordable to youth with disability. Materials used should be available, affordable, durable, cost-effective to youth with disabilities. I'm now going to talk about the easing employment opportunity. Point number 1, inclusive of all sexual orientation brought on board without tribalism and discrimination against any aspects of humanity. Point number 2, job creation. Job creation, in essence, have a vision, example of a tannery, seek for the materials needs lands, machinery, and personnel to run and manage the tannery. Point number 3, empowerment through creation of awareness, capacity building by having training from partners and interested organizations and conducting refresher courses. Also self-employment in terms of income generating activities by coming up with a business plan, identifying a project, activities by coming up with a business plan, identify projects that will generate income, for instance, a dairy shop, poultry farming, sheep and goat rearing, as we indigenous community does, among others. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is now for youth with disability to rise and shine. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ruben, for reminding us that the time is now for youth with disabilities, and also underscoring the aspect of intersectionality. That's very, very crucial, that how young, when we think about youth with disabilities, their youth could be a quite heterogeneous term, and adding the elements of gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic background, tribal status, adds another level of complexity to the whole analysis when it comes to employment inclusion. Thank you. And now we'll move to Lebanon, and we will hear from a youth activist, Haya Raba. Haya has been working in the domain of disability inclusion for almost 6 years. She has experience working with humanity and inclusion, and also International Committee of the Red Cross. Haya has upper limb amputation and has worked in the domain of architecture. So Haya, please illuminate us with your findings and your perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. So my name is Haya Rawi. Also, I'm wearing a pink scarf and wearing a black shirt. And also I have a very nice background, virtual background on Zoom. I'm having persons with disability advocating for their rights, an animation picture, and holding the Lebanese flag. So I would like to speak about the action number 3, which is about facilitate awareness raising on disability rights and inclusion. We believe that this action is so important to strengthen the youth with disability participation in society. It is stated in the UNCRPD Article 8 to ensure the respect for the rights and dignity of persons with disability. We as a persons with disability and youth, especially, we face a lot of misconceptions, harmful practices, stereotypes. So we need to raise the awareness in order to have to make people respect us, know how to deal with us, and have a positive attitudes towards us. And also through raising awareness, we can differentiate between the good and the poor practices, so we can avoid the stigma that we face as the youth with disability. In terms of good practices, as also I am a member of the National Association for the Rights of Persons with Disability in Lebanon, which is an OPD, we are working strongly to ensure that the rights of persons with disability are met by updating the law we have in Lebanon about the rights of persons with disability. Also, I would like to share a personal experience that I started with during COVID-19, which is in my Instagram page account. I'm sharing videos about myself as a person with upper limb amputation, doing daily activities like washing the dish, driving the car, all those activities, and it was really useful for other persons with disability. So from here, I would like to encourage all persons with disability to really share their stories so other persons with disability can learn and be more motivated and felt that they are really valuable and we can make a change, we have contributions, and we are a human being at the end. Thank you so much and looking forward.
Thank you so much, Haya. And for underscoring this important fact that it's so important to fight the misconceptions, stereotypes, assumptions which young people with disabilities encounter. What Marit mentioned in her video, that often young people with disabilities are seen as passive objects of charity and not as active subjects of rights. And that's what we've got to do. And thank you also for underscoring about the social media. We all might have heard about the 30 Days of Youth campaign. A colleague, Sandra, will be talking about it later. And we used that and reached out to more than 200,000 people during the course of the GDS Youth. So the power of social media, leveraged properly, could help in changing attitudes and bringing inclusion. So now we'll move to our next speaker from India, Kavya Mukhija. Kavya has worked in the domain of organizational psychology. She is presently a youth fellow at the National Center for the Promotion of the Employment of Disabled People. Kavya has also previously participated in the COSP in 2015 as one of the youngest delegate. So Kavya, please illuminate us. Thank you.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Today I would be talking about action point number 5, that is access the right to recreation and support sustainable friendships. How many of us had disabled friends? How many people with disabilities do we see when we go out for a trek to a supermarket, in schools, at restaurants, or a park? Probably very few. For most of us, the only persons with disabilities we ever knew while growing up were our own selves. Having lived in India, a country that is known for its cultural vibrance, recreational activities, and the echoing adage of unity in diversity, people all over around me, I must say, certainly missed out on a lot in the prevalence of inaccessibility. However, does this invisibility of youth with disabilities mean that we don't exist? That we don't wish to travel, practice hobbies, or be friends? Definitely we do. Perhaps we don't really see conversations in the realm of disability and recreation, but they are just as important as various other human rights. Oftentimes, our colorful and exciting lives remain a secret inside the four walls of our homes due to challenges such as infrastructural inaccessibility, stigma, discrimination, and biased perceptions. So here's what we can do. Include youth with disabilities in all aspects of planning businesses and activities, just as the UNCRPD echoes, nothing about us without us. Seeing the world from a disabled lens will allow us to create a world that is inclusive and welcomes everyone. Proactive participation of youth with disabilities themselves would also enable a lot of things. As persons with disabilities ourselves, we comprise the largest stakeholders. So it is time that we take the reins in our hands and make ourselves seen, heard, and felt. Because we exist and we deserve to live in this world as much as everyone else does. Thinking creatively and coming up with unique solutions is another way that things can be done. I'm sure many of us would have heard this. We are sorry, but we don't have disabled-friendly services, be it in terms of accessible washrooms, skiing, or rafting activities. Every time we wanted to experience something new, we were turned down. The fact is that even after so much activism, persons with disabilities are being left out of exactly those experiences that the non-disabled experience seamlessly. And finally, like I always say, talking about disability. Authentic friendships and relationships are not born in a day. They emerge from a continuous process of nurturing young minds with empathy, sensitivity, and care. Encouraging participation of and with disabled children at a young age breeds mindful adults who are kinder and more sensitive. In fact, research shows that being friends with someone who has a disability allows people to be more empathetic, compassionate, altruistic, and accepting of differences. So I hope together we are able to make a more inclusive, more welcoming, and a kinder world. Thank you so much and good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Kavya, for that powerful presentation and underscoring this aspect that we have to focus on making cultural spaces, sporting arenas, leisure activities, the things which people who don't have a disability take for granted, accessible and inclusive for all individuals, irrespective of their abilities. Yeah, now we move to this beautiful country of South Sudan from India. And our next speaker is Josephine Simon. Josephine is a deaf activist. She is 25 years old. She currently holds the title of Miss Deaf East Africa, and is a voluntary executive director of the South Sudan National Children and Youth Deaf Association. Josephine, the floor is yours. Josephine will be interacting with us with an interpreter.
Hi, yes, I am a Miss Deaf Africa, and you can see in my clothing that I represent Africa with my hair, my clothes. The interpreter is waiting for the video to continue.
It's really hard for me in the university, because as you know, primary, secondary, I could not have an interpreter. Even in the university, it's really a big challenge for me to work, to understand what they are teaching in the university. The same time also, we don't have visually impaired people. They don't have the brailles so that they focus to study. The same time, we don't have the wheelchairs for physically disabled people in schools. For example, actually, what I really want, we request, I appeal people who are concerned to help us with our scholarships in different states of South Sudan, also Juba as well. The same time, I really call upon training on sign language so that we would have many sign language interpreters to serve us. Also, really people in the village in South Sudan, they really suffer a lot. They abuse them a lot. They're not important. So they don't focus on them. They end up rejecting them. They only focus on able people. So we did more sign language training so that we could get good services in schools. So as you know, we are not supposed to be left behind. We are supposed to move forward with able people at once. Actually, I've been working with the TOFI. They have been supporting me, whereby I visited different schools where there are deaf children, also visually impaired children, physically disabled children, to give them guidance and counseling, help them in their issues once they have some problems. Like also last year, we also had Deaf Awareness Week, Deaf International Awareness Week in South Sudan here. Together with the TOFI, they supported us. Actually, we invited the government officials in our Deaf Awareness Week, and really we're focusing on UN Convention rights, whereby we really wanted them to make sure that they rectify the policies so that we also have our own rights as people with disabilities in South Sudan. Because it really helps us a lot as people of South Sudan. That's why really we called upon that program of International Deaf Awareness Week in South Sudan. It was even the first time to conduct it in South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josephine, for your intervention. We lost a little part of it, but we got the gist that inclusive education, which is action point number 8, is extremely crucial if we want to gain access to inclusive employment and meaningful participation in the society. And I feel that now this time is ticking, and I would like to invite Guler to take over and for the next session. Guler, hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Gagan, for facilitating this first panel with great leadership. It is now time to move on to the second panel of today, which is meant to build on the youth GDS and to explain to all of you how we built on the call for action, how we created, how we drafted this important text that will be influencing, hopefully, many stakeholders in the future to be more inclusive of youth with disabilities. This roundtable is made of 3 important speakers, important actors in the drafting of the call for action. The first speaker of this roundtable is Sandra Olson. She's currently working as project coordinator for the International Department at Youth Mental Health Norway. She has background in communication and international relations and worked closely with the Atlas Alliance, IDA and UNICEF in the planning of the GDS youth. So Sandra, you have the floor.
Thank you, Guler, for the introduction. Yes, as Guler mentioned, my name is Sandra Olsen. Just to give you a description of me, I am female. I have long brown hair. I'm wearing big round glasses and a black sweater. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the process behind the call for action, the Youth Charter. So it started during fall last year in 2021. The co-host of the GDS Youth started a discussion that eventually culminated in the call to action. The host wanted the youth to partake in something that would last, something foundational, something that cannot be ignored. Let us not underestimate the power of words, especially when these words are coming from the leaders of tomorrow, youth. This youth charter will guide world leaders in their planning, in their policy work, hopefully in the years to come, and will also lead to increased awareness of disability rights and inclusion of youth with disabilities worldwide. The Youth Charter is a document that grew out of the opinion of over 1,000 youth with disabilities from across the globe. This charter is not only for youth, but it also is by youth with disabilities. The co-hosts together invited youth and developed a survey that would be shared with youth across the world. This was done through the work of an advocacy working group who put a lot of time and effort into designing this survey so we would be able to capture as many youth as possible. To give a little bit of background information about the survey itself, it consisted of 8 questions that we asked the youth to answer. A key feature here was asking youth to range the topics that mattered the most to them, but also why. When asked why access to employment was important, one youth answered the importance of access to employment was important because I want to be independent. I want to be an example in society that I live in, that disabled people can also do better. I also enjoy serving people through employment, and I also enjoy earning my own money for my own survival. Their answers formed the basis for the Youth Charter, but more than that, really, the Youth Charter is the survey put in official writing and not just an interpretation of the answers. To ensure a wide reach as possible, we cast out our net far and wide, and the response was overwhelming. As Gagan mentioned earlier, we used, amongst other things, social media to reach youth, and in less than 2 weeks, the youth was engaging and they were letting us know their opinions about the topics that mattered the most to them. The charter reflects the diversity in the answers received so that this would become a charter for all youth with disabilities. The inclusion has been imperative in every step of the way so that youth can proudly stand behind this call for action and see that their opinions are being heard. The survey was translated into English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Russian. And out of the answers that we received from youth across the globe, they decided that the 5 most important topics for them was access to employment, access to technology and assistive devices, access to information, more specifically news, awareness raising on disability rights and inclusion, and authentic friendship and social life. But maybe just as important as these answers, the open-ended questions also showed an important pattern: the importance of this specific call for action as a tool to hold the leaders of the world accountable. There was an open question all the way at the end where we asked youth, to what extent do you feel that young people with disabilities are included in decision-making? 85% said they don't feel as included in decision-making as they wish. This number should not be this high. Youth across the globe agree that being involved in the process of policy making concerning them is important. Being able to get employed, raising awareness about the issues that are close to their hearts. World leaders must sign this call for action and be held accountable for what was being said by over 1,000 youth from across the world. This GDS Youth marks an important point in time. It marks a milestone, but just as important, this event marks the start of hopefully what will be the GDS Youth legacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for explaining us the process of drafting this important call for action. It is now time to go more into details in the charter and to see more how its content is made. So I'll now give the floor to the great Matias Ferreira, a very active youth working for the Advocacy Department of the International Disability Alliance. Matias has a degree in political sciences in Argentina, and he worked as a consultant in human rights, development and disability inclusion. And currently, he is the chair of the ULAC, the Latin American Blind Union. He also found youth movements in Latin America, such as META, the movement We Are All in Action, and he was involved in the ULAC Youth Secretariat and in several roles in youth organizations and organizations of persons with disabilities. Matias, you have the floor.
Thank you, Gular, and thank you for the Atlas Alliance, to IDA, and to the Youth Mental Health of Norway. Now I will continue speak in Spanish, that is my mother tongue. Bueno, muchas gracias.
Many thanks to everyone. I'm just going to share some ideas about the principal points of this call for action. I think that the whole process of the call for action, it's a process where we actually showed that we showed that in February of 2022 that this call is very important and that it's very current. That happened in February of 2022, and we're in June now, and from February to June a lot of things happened. And I think that some points from the charts are very important to be discussed. I would like to show which points I believe are very, very important, and to explain why. First point, which is something that I think that other people already mentioned, is the dignified employment. I think it's very important, and I think that in this situation of war, of inflation, of social situation, of the pandemics, that these are the situations that make a lot of people marginalized and discriminalized, especially poor people. And in these situations, we have to think about the real necessity of employment. There are more opportunities in different countries, and that's something very important. All young people with disabilities want to have a dignified employment, but they also need to have, we also need to have money and salary to fulfill all the needs, all the life needs we actually have. And that's something that's very important, that we want to show that it's not only about getting a job, it's also about making a living. And the second thing I want to talk about is the global inflation, the restrictions of food. And I think that we should guarantee that we should make sure that people have the access to food. And I also believe that it's very important that all the people with disabilities, and especially young people with disabilities, have the access to social security, and that we know that we have at least minimal wages, and that we have food, and that we have something to eat, because sometimes we don't know if we're going to eat or where we're going to live. And I think it's something that we should have in mind. A lot of us that are here, we have internet access, we have a laptop, a computer, but a lot of our colleagues with disabilities, they don't even know if they're going to have money to be able to eat. And I think that the social security shouldn't have barriers and should fulfill those necessities. The third point I would like to share with you is the access of the point from 2016, of the point 6. We are still living in a world where the access to sanitary ways is not something that's available for everyone. It's more accessible to some people, but not to all of the people. And I think that the access to resources, to schools, to productivity, to health is something that we cannot forget. Thank you very much, Matthias. Thank you very much, Matthias.
Thank you so much, Matthias.
Thank you
for your great speech. I think if you have the last point that you wanted to share, you can maybe share in the chat box. But yeah, for the sake of time, I would have to give the floor to the last speaker of today, just so we can make sure that the service providers and everybody stay on time. And now, last but not least, I would give the floor to the great Iqbal Adrali, a very great young disability activist from Pakistan. He was working in the past for humanity and inclusion, and now is working for the International Disability Alliance as a fellow on Article 11 of the UN Convention of the CRCD, the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities. The Article 11 being on humanitarian action. And now Iqbal will call upon all the stakeholders who are watching and listening to this side event to sign and implement the call for action. So Iqbal, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Hello, Guler and everyone. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak in this particular and fantastic event of COSP. And it's really important that speakers talk about the Youth Charter, the journey that begins basically in February 2022, with the Youth the Youth Summit, Youth Disability Summit. And it is already actually now been an integral part of the several processes that, like, for example, we are doing. One of the important aspects of the Youth Charter is actually that it is actually created under 3 grounds, development, human rights, and humanitarian action, taking in view that the world is moving now in the direction which is more inclusive and integrated approach, so that we can move not only in the development processes, not only subject to the human rights, but holding the rights, from holding the right to exercise them is to make our ways to things like green jobs in the climate change, in the climate action, etc. And it is really important, as one of the speakers mentioned, and it is for the youth, by the youth. So the ownership of the charter is important for all of us as stakeholders, as a government, and as an individual to support this charter in the days to come. We're expecting that before there was no youth agenda, both in the youth movement, but also in the larger disability movement. This charter is actually a landmark for all of us to integrate the youth issues in both the movements and to generate the evidence for the future. We are also expecting that this charter or call for action will be an integral part for all of us to make the youth with disabilities connected from all over the world and have a better, inclusive, and accessible future. We hereby call upon the government, the stakeholders, organizations of persons with disabilities, and those who are working for disabilities, the individuals to sign the call for action and to take the ownership of this call for action within their own vicinities and their own place of work. We are expecting that the future with this call for action will be inclusive and accessible for all youth with disabilities and their constituencies. I really want to say congratulations to all of us for this call for action, and believe that this would be the first step and other to follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Iqbal. And now we are in the final phase of this proceedings. It has been an exciting side event, as you have heard from speakers spanning different continents, from Africa to Europe to Latin America to Asia. And the message is crystal clear. Time is now for including youth with disabilities. Time is now for ensuring that there is nothing without us. As Mr. Yanis Vardakastanis mentioned in the Civil Society Forum at the Global Disability Summit, that we cannot be left behind. We cannot be left out of the discussions when it comes to issues linked to education, employment, recreational services, climate change, and social protection. We have to be included because we are not only the future of the society, but we are the present of the society. And if we want to build an open, inclusive, accessible, sustainable world, then we have to engage with youth with disabilities. And Youth Charter is the first step of this process. And what Iqbal rightly mentioned in the end, that we have to ensure that this charter gets signed. There's a lot of awareness created about this charter, and it gets adopted so that we could hold the stakeholders, the governments, the donor agencies, the multilateral institutions, the youth associations accountable, so that we could bring a much more inclusive world and a kinder world, wherein youth with disabilities are like any other youth. They feel included and their participation is meaningful and substantive. So on that note, I would like to close this session. But before I do that, a big thanks to Guler, the co-moderator, the IDA team, the logistics team. They've worked tirelessly for this event to come to fruition. Much gratitude to the Atlas Alliance team, Leke Stavnes, and also Sandra Olsen from Youth Mental Health Norway. Very crucial partners, African Disability Forum. Your input was very valuable. Thank you to all the speakers who followed and participated from across the globe. And without you, without your engagement, without your creativity, without your enthusiasm, this event is not possible. And thanks to all the interpreters as well for making this event accessible. And last but not the least, many thanks to all of you who are following this event, listening to it, engaging with us, because with you, we will write together the new chapter on disability inclusion for youth with disabilities across the globe, for 200 million youth with disabilities. We are united together, all comrades, all colleagues, all companions in the fight for greater inclusion, for greater equality, for greater justice for all of us. Bye-bye from now, from Oslo, and we hope to engage with all of you in the future as well. This is just a comma, it's not a full stop of the conversation. Thank you.